The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the preview of FileMaker class, hosted by Samir Khan, authorized FileMaker trainer and developer. Today's class, you will learn the basics of integrating a spreadsheet into FileMaker database and some of the components, as well as the features of using FileMaker to manage your data. We will be hosting questions during the chat session. You can address those to me, and I will respond accordingly. And we'll also have an open platform towards the end of the seminar to ask questions to Samir and myself. My name is Maria Lopez. I work with Anvil DataWorks, and thank you for coming. Samir, I turn this over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Samir. I'm the trainer and presenter here for Anvil DataWorks. I'm going to jump right into it here, and I'm sure the people that are attending were familiar with Excel, and we're probably even familiar with FileMaker to a certain degree. But I'm going to show a couple of things that we can do very quickly to get data into FileMaker and then start using the benefits of FileMaker, reporting and scripting, the ease of the graphical design. So start off real simple here. Let me share my screen. Take a look at some items here. So the first thing that we're going to look at is a spreadsheet. Pretty straightforward, contact management. I've got an ID, first and last name, email address, phone number. Now, we know in spreadsheets, kind of limited a little bit here. If I need to find someone, I can do a find for every time Deshane shows up. I can keep searching. Problem is, I don't have a list of that information. I can't say, show me everybody that is Deshane, give me that list and I can print it out. Or every time the last name is Garfield. Okay. This find is very generic. It's searching for everything. Now, granted, I could go in here, do a little bit more, but the idea is that it's still a pretty basic system as far as finding information. We're familiar with this, right? If I needed to sort by something, I could come in here, where is it? I believe it's under data, isn't it? Sort, expand the selection, and then I can sort by a particular column. Again, a bit of a arduous task here because I have to go through a few different steps just to sort by the last name. And again, we're more than likely familiar with this, but I just wanted to point this out before we get into FileMaker. Some of the benefits, right? So let's take this file. It's just a simple contact management system. We're going to convert it over to FileMaker. Let's take a look at how FileMaker can handle some of the data. First thing I want to talk about, just while I'm converting this over, and I'll show you how easy it is talking about some of the terminology and how it'll link back to FileMaker. Now, I find this is pretty easy. I have FileMaker open. All I really need to do is drag and drop the spreadsheet into FileMaker. Now, FileMaker's smart enough to know that this is a spreadsheet and that at times the first row in the spreadsheet will be field names. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tell FileMaker this is the first row, they are field names. Go ahead and import the data. And whenever FileMaker creates a file, this is just the way that FileMaker works. If I convert something or if I'm starting something new, I have to create the file first. Because there's no saving involved when I work with a FileMaker database. Everything is saved automatically. So I'll put this on the desktop and we'll call it contacts.fp7. It's the FileMaker extension there. Take a look. Okay, now, looks just like Excel. Got pretty much the same controls as Excel. It's pretty easy to get in, too. It wasn't that difficult. And if I wanted to take a look, one thing that's nice is I can start building form-based views of the database. So looking at one record rather than all of the records. Well, let's talk about some of the terminology here so we can get that done with. So if I'm looking at Excel, try to get these lined up next to each other here. Yes, we can. Okay, so if I look at Excel, I'm limited here, rows and columns. Okay. A row represents an entity, right? If this is a spreadsheet of entities, then this is one entity, a row. And for that row, I have a series of columns. The columns are the attributes of that entity. So FileMaker, we call them records, right? So a row is now a record, and a column is now known as a field. Okay? Just some terminology. So records, columns, records, rows, columns, fields. Okay? It's going to help you understand what that actually represents. Right? We look at it as a spreadsheet format. This name first field or column contains the first name. I know this is some simple stuff, but just to get it out of the way. Now, let's take a look at that situation. Every time I want to find someone, the last name of Deshane, one of the initial, and you can see it right off the bat here, one of the benefits of performing a search in FileMaker is I only see the results of my search. And I'll see the whole list, I just see the result. I want to find every time the first name has Ed in it. Let's find everyone that has the last name of Dean. So as you can see, in a reporting standpoint, I can say, here are all of my quote-unquote certain types of people. And I can print that list out, and away I go. Nice and simple. So already we're seeing some of the benefits here of FileMaker as far as reporting is concerned. I can report on exactly my set of data. Now, give me 1 second here. What I'm going to do, it looks like I'm having some problems with my microphone. So I'm going to turn the microphone up a little bit. I hope that's not too loud for anybody. Okay, and let's give this a try. Okay. I think that'll be a little bit better. So, some initial stuff. Okay, simple to integrate, simple to convert over to. Okay, I've got a little bit more power as far as reporting. Already, I haven't even done anything, just brought the data over, but doing simple things like searching. Okay. Searching for data and reporting on it. Even the sorting is easier. I can come in here and just click on the column and sort it. Now, if I needed to, I could go into a little bit more in-depth sorting, which is another benefit of FileMaker. It's pretty easy. Okay, I want to sort by last name, and then just on the off chance that people have the same last name, let's go ahead and sort by, oops, let's go ahead and add in the first name. So sort by both of those columns. Again, things like Dean. If I've got multiple Deans, go ahead and sort those records by the first name as well. Okay, simple stuff. Granted, it is pretty simple, but it makes a difference when you're looking at a spreadsheet versus looking at the data in FileMaker. Okay, so as I mentioned before, FileMaker is definitely the database you want to use or the system you want to use when you start to talk about the graphical side of things. Okay. Right now I'm just looking at a table-based layout. Now in FileMaker we call the screens that we work with layouts. In Excel, we're pretty limited here as far as layout management, layout design. Everything that I work with is a spreadsheet. It's a table view. I could come in here, add a new worksheet, and maybe define a form. The problem is that this form does not relate back to this sheet. And the beauty of FileMaker is that working with a different layout, I have Susanna Dean selected. That's who I look at when I switch to my form view. Okay, so we have some added benefits of data control as well as just the simple stuff like looking at data. Okay. So let's switch over to this form view for a second. I mentioned that FileMaker is very graphically oriented. So we start to talk about the different ways that we can look at layouts. Now right now, and I mentioned this before, FileMaker uses layouts to display data. Okay? And those layouts are controlled to a certain degree. So if I come to Layout 2 and I click on Aaron Deepna, when I go back to Layout 1, Aaron Deepna is still selected. I'm looking at his information. Now with layouts, every layout can be viewed in different formats. Right now I'm looking at this layout in what we call the form view. Right? Just a form, series of fields, and I could spread it out on the layout, but I only have these 5 fields to display. I can also do things like take the form and put it in list view. Okay? And same thing as before, we were looking at layout number 2, right? And we call this table view. The nice thing is that I can take any layout that I'm looking at and put it in table view. And I can look at the information as if it were a spreadsheet. So it's nice to have that ability of going backwards, right? I've got that backwards compatibility. If I'm coming from a spreadsheet, or if my boss is more familiar with looking at a spreadsheet, then maybe I could create my reports and then just go ahead and put it in table view and send them that information, right? Because they're more comfortable looking at it in a table format. Okay. Again, just some real simple stuff, but we start to get into how FileMaker is going to handle data. So I'm going to go back into form view for a second here. When we talked about the different views, you'll notice that we've also got a series of tasks, buttons, and we call this the status area. Now the status area controls your data. It gives me options for doing different things. Now, we work with most of the time in FileMaker, we'll work in form view, okay, because we'll be looking at one record at a time, maybe showing some related information or something like that. So when we work with records or we're working in form view, it's popular to have these new record, delete record buttons. Okay? If I need to take Wolf Faulkner, I don't work with him anymore. So let's delete his record. Okay. If I were to do it in my spreadsheet, I'd have to come here and find William. There's Will right there. Okay. Grab this row and say delete. Okay. Kind of the same concept here. I'm not going to save the changes, but you'll notice that if I do make a change in Excel, I'm not paying attention and I say no, everything that I just did, all that work I did, is wiped, gone. In FileMaker, things we do, anything we do, any changes we make, They're all done automatically. There's no saving involved. Now this could be a benefit and can also be a downside, right? If we make changes, come in here and I realize that it's not gmail.com, it's actually hotmail.com, and save the change. Saving the change means I click out of the field. That change is made. There's no going back. So you can see that there could be some times when you make a change, realize that you didn't want it, and you saved it by accident. Okay. Now FileMaker does have some ability to prevent that from happening. Okay. If I come in here and I say his email is gmail.com, I realize I'm looking at the wrong record. Okay. I just modified the wrong record. I could go to this records menu and revert the record. And then it'll just wipe out any changes that I made. So we get into this idea or this concept of opening and closing records. Okay, and this is the difference between FileMaker and Excel to a certain degree, any database to spreadsheets. When I click into a field, I open the record. When I click out, I close it, or I commit the record. Okay. So as long as I don't click out of any fields, I can always revert the record. If I click out of the field for any reason, that option is gone. Okay, the record has been saved. As you can see from the standpoint of data management, FileMaker is graphically oriented in the sense that clicking in and clicking out are what open and close records. And since we're working with records, we do need a way to create new records. If I'm looking at something in table view, it's as simple as clicking on the plus sign down here. Or just even clicking on the field and start typing. Okay. In form view, though, that doesn't really work. I don't have a blank form to click into. Okay. So what I need to do is use button structure, create a new record. Okay. We talked about the sorting of records, just to be a little bit more detailed with what we can do. This shows any fields. It also shows any related tables. Okay. And I can do things like sort by the last name, then the first name, oops, sort by the email address, sort by the contact ID. Okay. Nice thing about FileMaker is I will always see statuses of things. What record am I looking at? What's the total number of records? What's my sort state? Am I sorted? Am I unsorted? And then since we're working with form, we also have the ability of navigating records. Okay. Now a couple of things we want to talk about in FileMaker that are going to be different if you're coming from a spreadsheet. First thing we have to do is really just talk about the different modes of FileMaker. Now, FileMaker is a database system. So for the most part, 95% of the time, you're in browse mode. I don't know if you can see down here, FileMaker does tell you what mode you're in. It may not be obvious at first, but once you get into FileMaker, you'll know when you're in the different modes. But there are 4 modes: browse, find, layout, and preview. Browse mode, 95% of the time, you're in browse mode. You're viewing data, you're modifying data, you're adding data. Okay? Working with data, I'm browsing the records. As I said, you'll know once you get into FileMaker, you'll know what mode you're in. If I'm in browse mode, I'm going to see data. If I'm in find mode is my searching mode. Okay, I need to search information in the database. I'll have these little magnifying glasses that tell me what fields I can search on. Now the searching is very specific. If you remember in the spreadsheet, when we did the search, it searched for everything. Search this value on all of the fields. I could do something similar to that, but I may want more of a query type of system. So I may want to say, find all the records where the first name begins with an S and the last name begins with a K. Just doing a random search here. There were 2 records that met those criteria. Okay, so if you notice the status here, I'm on record number 1 of a found set of 2 records with a total number of 51 records in the database. Currently I'm unsorted. If we do something like look at the table structure here, we have the 2 records. Stephen King, Samir Khan. Okay. So find mode is my way of searching the database for information. I may want to find every time someone has a Hotmail account. So I do my search for all the email addresses with @hotmail.com in it. They're all of my Hotmail accounts. Maybe I want to sort by last name or something like that. Okay. So find mode, performing searches. We also have preview mode. Now preview mode is my print preview screen. If I were to go into this, if I were to go in here, perform a search, and say print from the file menu, okay, this doesn't get printed out, just this one record per page. It actually goes ahead and lists the records for me. Okay, so preview is my print preview, what gets printed out. Now if you've noticed, every time I switch modes, if I'm in browse mode, I've got a series of buttons. If I'm in find mode, I've got a series of buttons. If I'm in preview mode, I've got a series of buttons. Okay? All of the modes will have their own set. You'll also notice that the navigation will change. If I'm in browse mode, I am navigating records. If I'm in find mode, I'm navigating search requests. Okay? So I can do things like show me every single time that the last name begins with a K, create a new request, and show me every time the first name has an SA in it. Just 2 records. Okay? If I look at the requests, however, I can navigate them. So my second request is SA, first request was last name of K. Okay? So browse is records, find, search requests, preview navigates pages, and then our last mode, which is our developer mode, layout mode. Let's kind of take this layout and modify it. Okay, so this is our developer mode. And you can see we've got some controls here. Right? I can add some text labels, some basic graphics, lines, squares, rounded squares, and ovals. Then I've got some FileMaker specific tools that I can use to design my system. So once again, in layout mode, I'm developing a layout, and I'm navigating layouts with my navigation. Okay. So the 4 modes, and as you can see, each mode, they go together with each other. So just on that one search that we did, find every time Gmail shows up. Take those Gmail records, go and put it in table view, sort the last name, go into preview mode. Okay. they all tie together, is what I'm kind of trying to hint at here. Okay. All the modes tie together. I add records and view them in browse mode. I go into find mode to search for them, and then I probably go into preview mode to print them. If I see an issue, probably come in here into layout mode and fix it. Let's give it a little bit of color to everything. Just a little bit of design to things here. And get rid of the header and footer, don't need that. And away I go. Okay. So everything's tied together. Okay, so we've done some real basic stuff with FileMaker, just, messed around with some data, taking a look at the different modes. I haven't really looked at any of the control, anything. So let's take a look at one thing that I find very beneficial is the concept of using the search engine, because there's a lot of things that we can do with this search engine that goes beyond just find everybody with the last name of King. Right? The thing that's nice is I can add new requests. I can omit records, find everybody that is not the last name of King. Show me everybody else, basically. And again, some other nice things about this. I'm not limited to matching values. Okay? I can do some logical or operator-based searching. Now in this, unfortunately with this particular database, we won't be able to do some of this stuff, less than, greater than. We just don't have fields for it. But we can do something like find 0 or more characters, find empty fields. Okay? So created a series of blank records. One popular search in FileMaker is finding blank values. Go into a search for the first name. I want to know when the first name field is blank. There are 15 records that match that criteria. Okay. I want you to find me every time there's an email address. It's not equals, but star. Oh, excuse me. I hope nobody heard that. That was a pretty harsh sneeze there. Find everything that has something in the email address. Right? Star. There's a lot more here. There's a lot available. And in more advanced webinars, maybe we can talk about how we can use the search engine. Take a look at some more heavy-duty data. Right now we're just doing real simple contact management. As I mentioned before, I can use requests to increase my found set. So I want to find everything that has Gmail as its email. Go ahead and add a new request. Let's put in Verizon as well. And I may have messed that up. I think I didn't use Verizon, did I? Verizon.com. So let's do that search again. Come back in here, find everybody that's at gmail.com, create my new request, and then put everyone that is at Verizon.com. I've got 25 records. Take a look at them. Okay, and you can see there's only Verizon and Gmail records. Okay, so I took two separate searches and combined them together. Okay, and one thing that's nice about FileMaker is I can always modify my last search to take a look at it. So my first request was at gmail.com. My second request was at verizon.com. Now you've noticed I'm wrapping these in quotes. Okay? There's a reason for that. It's because the at symbol is an operator. It just means any one character. So just a basic rule here of FileMaker, if you're going to do searches on email addresses, make sure you wrap them in quotes, or else the at symbol will cause problems. Okay. Now, talked about some real basic searching methods. Let's talk about the layout design as well. So just real quickly, we'll talk about layout designs, and then we'll switch over to Q&A. If anybody has any questions on anything we've gone over so far, we can go over those things. So last little bit here, layouts. Now I've really only worked with two different layouts. One is a table view, the other is a form view. Right? Layout 1, layout 2. I can create other layouts then. Okay. Standard form, which is what we were looking at before, layout number 1. Table view, which is the layout we're looking at. A list type of view, very similar to table, but gives you a little bit more options as far as control and graphical design. We've got some reporting tools. We can do just a blank layout. This one's always popular, mailing labels layout. So let's take a look at this one, mailing labels. FileMaker's pretty good. They've got just about every type of label that Avery has ever made listed here. If for some reason the label that you have is not in this list, what's nice is I can use custom measurements. I can go ahead and say, here's how many labels go across this page, here's the width, here's the height, here are the margins. I'm going to keep it simple though. We'll just use this 5160. It's a pretty common Avery label. I'm going to make some mailing labels here. So I'll go ahead and put in the first and the last name. Very similar to a mail merge in Office. I do have to create the spacing in between my values. All right, just adding some character returns. And after I get them all in there, I'm all set. Here are my mailing labels. I can come to this layout at any point and print out the labels. Now, one thing that I may want to do, I'm only looking at 25 records. Let's show them all for a second. And then take a look at this. I might want to sort these just so that they're in order. It's a little bit confusing if they're not in order. But you can see some of the benefits here of getting mailing labels printed out now. Any set, right? Think about any set. I can search for everyone with at Yahoo. And go ahead and print their labels. Modify the set and go ahead and put in okay. Now if you notice I changed my found set without having to type anything in. This is another benefit of FileMaker. It shows you your recent searches. Okay, I'm clicking on this little down arrow here. This is only available in 10 and 11. But it shows me recent searches, and I can also save searches that I've performed. It's a nice little nifty feature. So if you remember, I did the Gmail or Verizon, Gmail or Verizon.net, that one that I got wrong. Omit King, search for at Gmail. search for K or SA, right? You guys remember all these searches we just performed. So it's showing me these recent ones. I can clear them out, but that's pretty handy, especially if I'm looking at multiple sets of data. And I need to perform this fine and print this report out. I'm going to perform this fine and print this report out. But then I need to come back to this one. So why come in here and have to retype all of that information? Right? When I could just get to it from a single click. I could come in here and just say, just show me that set again. Or, oh, you know what, show me that set. Okay. When I've got what I want, go to my next label, go to my next layout, whatever printing layout I want to use. And I always recommend using preview mode. Preview mode will show you what gets printed out before you print. So just on that off chance that maybe something's crossing over, or if you notice I've got this extra page here, this extra blank page, I could come in and fix that before I print. Let me get rid of this header. That should fix it. Now there's still a little extra floating page there. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Probably just some sizing issues. It could be a situation with margins. Right? If I'm since my computer is linked to my printer may have some specific margins that are throwing this printout off a little ways. It's just throwing it off just a little bit, and so I'm getting an extra blank page. Right? It's something that you'll just learn working with FileMaker. Okay, I do have to come in here and define my page margins. That way I don't get this extra blank page. Your reporting is the same thing. Once you write the report and you come into preview mode, you may notice some gaps. You may notice an extra blank page. And these are all things that you'll just learn developing in FileMaker. Check your page margins, right? Set them accordingly. That way everybody prints out with the same gaps on the top and the sides. And there shouldn't be any issues with extra blank pages. That's getting into advanced development, and we're not going to talk about that today. But as I mentioned, there are other layout types. These three at the bottom are the only ones that require preview mode in order to view the information the way that it's supposed to be displayed. Labels, vertical labels, and envelopes. The rest of these are just standard, what you might consider standard layouts. A form, table, list, some sort of report. And then if you're doing something that requires a lot of custom development, you'll use a blank layout. So last thing to show, just because we're working in it, I've been working in layout mode a little bit here, is layout design, layout development. And so got a couple minutes, I'll just show you real quickly. FileMaker, we can do some things like change the fill colors. Let's do is that magenta? Something like that. I can take this box, modify the formatting on that. Let's make it white. Oh, send it to the back. Drop it down the center a little ways, right? Give my system a little bit of flair, a little pizzazz. Okay. I can do things like add information, contact management. It's always handy to know what you're doing on the screen. And we'll modify the formatting on this one a little bit. Maybe we'll add a button to do something like go to the table view. Right, I want to rely on this drop down here, so let's just make a button that goes over to layout number 2. will say, oops, table. Okay. Give myself a little bit of ease here in my design. So here's my form. If I do a search, I'd like to take a look at it in table view. A lot of control. You guys, I'm sure you noticed, really just touching here on some real basic stuff. Got a lot more available to us in FileMaker. It's going to make things like managing contacts, managing, anything a lot easier. It's going to make it a lot easier in FileMaker because I have this ability of creating graphically defined layouts to manage the data. So what I'll do is, I think we're just about at time here for Q&A, so I'm going to pass the puck over to Maria. Maria, do you want to open up the floor for questions?
Good morning. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and unmute anyone so that way if you would raise your hand on the panel there, you are able to raise your hands. If you have any questions, I can go ahead and unmute you to ask questions directly to Samir. Alrighty, everyone. I have unmuted the floor, so you're allowed to ask questions. Samir, someone has a request. They would like to see the create the button record that you did.
Sorry about that. I was muted there. So you want to see how I created that button, is that correct, Maria?
Yes. Yeah. A viewer would like to go over, creating the button that takes you to the list view.
Okay. So the one thing was this. I already have the layouts defined, right? I had a layout that was a table view. So what I did was in my layout, the one that it's considered the form, in layout mode, I drew a button, right? The little fill button with the hand on it. I don't know if anyone noticed that the hand actually only has 4 fingers, but that's we won't deal with that today. So you draw this guy out, and it gives me button control. Now, think about button control is very specific to knowing what you're doing in FileMaker. The best way to learn button or even script design control is to know your sections. Okay? If I need a button to go somewhere and go and do something, go to a different mode, I'm going to look under navigation. On the flip side, if I want to do something like show a dialog box, and I need to look in the miscellaneous section. So first and foremost, just know where you're going to look for your control. Okay, so in this example, I made a button that went to the table view. And I just realized I wasn't showing my screen, so hold on one second here. So first thing is I use this button tool, right, the 4-finger hand button tool, and I draw something out. I get my button setup control. Now, as I mentioned, just know what you're going to be looking for, what section. If I'm going to a layout or if I'm changing modes, I'm in navigation, if I'm doing some sort of Windows management, I'm in Windows. I'm working with a found set. Right? I've got a particular set of controls. So know your sections, and it'll make things easier for you as far as defining the button. This goes in line with scripting as well. Okay, so my button was a table view button. Well, I already had the layout defined. So for me, it was as simple as saying navigation, go to layout. And with this script step, or with this button control, any button control, when I select it, my options are on the right-hand side. So when I say go to layout, I still need to specify which layout to go to. Okay, so in this example, it was layout number 2. We could even do layout number 3 if we wanted to. Okay, just to make things a little bit different here. And this one will be the mailing labels button. And I may move it around or resize it, something like that. Okay. Now you notice I had to do 2 steps there. So one thing you might want to consider is writing a script to do that. And then instead of this button just saying go to layout, it says perform script. And then you'll notice when you do this, scripting follows all of these same controls. Okay. Any other questions? Maria?
Yes, there's some questions in regards to relational capabilities, how FileMaker can relate different databases as well as portals. Can you give us a brief example of that, please?
Sure. So one thing that I might want to do, this is just, we'll put together a real simple example here. If I'm doing contact management, I may want to throw something in there that's related. Let's just say notes, for example. So I'm going to go into Manage Database. We haven't really talked about this yet, right? We're still in the basics of FileMaker. But when I need to do something to the database, add fields, add tables, do any type of relational design, I have to come into my Manage Database, okay, to handle that. So let's create a new table here. Let's call this Notes. Okay. And what we're going to do with notes, we're going to link it to the contacts table. So I might need something like a contact ID to link it together. I'm going to go ahead and create my primary key for the notes so that every single note record I create has its own unique ID. I'll just create this note option. It's something real simple, just just one field that really matters. One thing that's nice about FileMaker, defining relationships are all graphical in nature. Okay, so I just drag the 2 fields that are going to be linked together, drag and drop, I've got my relationship. I'm going to do something else that's a little bit different here. And we get into some more FileMaker specific stuff, but if I allow creation of records through the relationship and also deleting related records, what this does is on the screen, on my contact screen, I will be able to create note records. If I delete a contact, all the notes associated with that contact are deleted. Okay, so that's what these 2 options do. So I'll say okay. Okay, one more time. And now when we work with relationships, for the most part, we're going to be using portals. So I'm going to click on this portal tool and draw this guy out. Whenever I define a portal, I have to point to my related table. Hold on to show scroll bar. Oh, I forgot to select the notes field. Okay, but the idea is that this portal will now point to the notes table, the one that's related. And what I can do, I can go ahead and put in that's a little large. Let's make that size 11 font. Okay. Now, if I go to the notes table, I have 0 records. Okay. So what I'm going to do is let's pop this open and we'll do a. Let's do this. Go back to layout 1. We'll look at our form. Okay. We'll create a new window. This one will go to notes. So just so we can see this. 0 records. What that option allows me to do, creating through the relationship. When I select a record, Martin Darklook here, for example. So I click into Martin's record and I have a blank note here. Notice I have no records. I have no records here. But the moment that I actually create a note, oops. When I save this, notice that the record is created. The contact ID from the contact comes over. Okay, so this is just one of those FileMaker things. Martin is an evil man, right? Right when I click out of here, bam, adds a new record. Okay, so the thing that's nice is the notes themselves are completely separate records. Okay? None of this note information resides in contact management. It sits over here on the other side in another table. Let's just take these 3 fields. They're way too large. That's bothering me. There we go. It takes the contact ID of the one I'm looking at and puts it over into this record. So if I go to someone else, John Cullum, for example, okay, John's ID is transferred over. So they're related. Okay, if I look at Martin Darkloak, he only has his notes. John only has his. The relational design here. The beauty is I can come in and find whenever a note shows up and it has a particular word in it, evil, or man. Okay. The notes are not specific. Obviously, I can't see who this note belongs to, but I could set something up for that. It's not a big deal. Idea is, though, I can search for note information and find all the notes that relate to this, or that contain this one particular value, the word man. Okay. Here in the contact management screen, if I do that same search, I get a list of contacts. So you can see that we're splitting out the entities. Okay. And this is a real simple example. We're just talking about notes here. There's a lot of other things that we can relate. In contact management, maybe they have related addresses or related invoices or something along those lines. Other questions?
Samir, someone would like for you to create a simple script.
Let's see here. We don't really have anything we could use. Oh, I guess we could do the mailing labels. Let's go ahead and do that. So I mentioned it earlier. If I create a mailing labels button, The problem is that it just goes to the layout. I have to come in here and still go into preview mode and then even print the layout in order to get my labels out. So one thing we might want to do is write a script to handle that. Just let the script do everything. So in FileMaker, when I write a script, I'm going to this Manage Scripts window. When I say new, let's go ahead and create this mailing labels script. Always a good idea to give your script names, and I know I wasn't following it, but your layouts as well. Give them names that are appropriate. In this example, it wasn't too important because we were just talking about conversion of things, but it's always a good idea to name them appropriately. So give your script a good name, mailing labels. Whenever we script, one thing we have to do is we have to keep in mind what are the steps required in order to get to my final result. In this example, I want to run a mailing labels script. So let's follow the steps in FileMaker from the beginning. So I may perform a search. After I perform my search, I need to go to the layout. I need to go into preview mode. I need to print my records. And then after I'm done, I'm going to exit the preview mode or go back into browse mode and then go back to my starting layout. Those are the steps I have to follow in order to run the mailing labels. So what I'll do is write my script in that same manner. What was the first step? Well, the first step was to say, go over to that layout. So I just double click on it. Now a little different, a little bit different than the button setup here. The options are going to be down at the bottom, but they're the same. So I'll create the first step here is a go to layout. I want to go to layout number 3. Staying in navigation here, I need to go into preview mode. Now one thing I might want to do, since I was stopping and looking at the records, looking at the printout, in preview mode I have an option here to pause the script. So I'll go ahead and do that. Go to the layout, go to preview mode, and pause it. After I pause, let's go and where would I find the print option? I would find it in the file menu. So more than likely, if I scroll through here, look at the files section, I'll see my print command. So I'll go ahead and throw in the print. Right after I printed, what did I do? I exited preview mode. Well, I don't have a way of exiting modes in a script. But what I can do is just go back into another type of mode. So I'll just say go back to browse mode. After I went into browse mode, I went back to the original layout where I started from. Okay? So scripting is pretty simple in the sense that I follow the steps manually in FileMaker, and then I write my script based off of those steps. So I save it, close. Let's change this button. Okay? Right now it was just going to this layout, so now it's going to go ahead and perform this script, mailing labels. I click on it. Here's my preview. Notice that the script is paused. When I say continue, I get my print script. I'm just going to cancel it. I'll say continue with the script. And now I'm back at my contact management screen. So scripting is specific to how you do things in FileMaker manually. And once you know how to do that, you just transfer that to the script. Write your script in that manner. You can never go wrong. Other questions, or are we at our time limit here? Did we lose everybody?
Thank you, Samir. No, to all the attendees, I will send you a follow-up email summarizing some of the things that we've learned today. We'll edit and post this presentation on our YouTube channel, so that way if you'd like to reference some of the information here that was learned, you can do that at your leisure. As well as we'll also have upcoming training classes and FileMaker events in the area. We do host a user group once a month in the DC area that you can join in person or via the web, and we'll send you that information so that way you can find out more of what we do here in the FileMaker community. Thank you once again for joining us. I hope that everyone has a great day.
Maria, can I leave with just one little nifty tidbit here?
Of course.
Okay, so I know we've kept to the real simple stuff in FileMaker. I hope we still have attendees, but one thing that I might want to do is integrating particular values from FileMaker into something like an Outlook calendar. Okay, and you can see how crazy my calendar is right now. So I'm going to go ahead and create this script. What are we in January 26th? So I'm going to go ahead and create an event here. Let's just say I'm creating an event. And the event's going to take place on the 27th. And we'll call this okay. One thing that I might want to do is integrate my FileMaker data with something like Outlook. Okay. So I can do things with scripts like create calendar events. So I can take whatever from my system, give it a start date and an end date, and save it. If I take a look at my calendar, what day did I say it was? Oh,
The 27th.
did I say the 27th?
You did.
I did say the 27th. Why is it not on there? Oops. Let's recreate it. I'll create another one. No big deal. Recreate it. I messed something up. Let's do that. Oh, how can that be? Look at that. There's a little mistake there. The end time is in the past. So I don't know how that would work, but let's do 12/7. No. Not 12, we want 1, right?
Samir, they asked how were you able to integrate that into your Outlook calendar?
If you want to know, you got to come to the next user group meeting. Okay, so and then we'll just pop this open. Hold on, come on, there we go. Did I say one time? Maybe I didn't went ahead and put it in as December. I probably did. I didn't. Did I say 12/27/2011? Right? I mean, I'm having a problem. Did you guys see an Outlook message pop up? I'm sorry, my laptop is blocking my screen.
You put it as 1/7/2011.
1/7?
Yes.
Let's go back up to January. Oh, there it is.
Ta-da!
Gotta pay attention to what date I'm putting in, right? So the idea is that what I'm doing is I'm creating an ICS file from FileMaker, and then I just open it up. And the ICS file is defaulted to open up with Outlook, which will then allow you to save this information, the ICS file, the one I created from FileMaker. Now, if you notice, I had a couple of little issues. 127. Where's my? Right here, when I create this, and you have to do a little bit of research with this, but let's just do this one as an example. The idea is that all I do is set a field to these values, export the contents as a file.ics. And then if you take a look at that file, right, it's a calendar file. So if you just open it up, And I could open it up through FileMaker too, but
now, Samir, can this work with any calendar, or does it work with your own personal calendar?
Outlook is acting like a punk right now and taking its sweet time doing things. This is an ICS file, so depending on if I'm on a Macintosh machine, this will open up with whatever my default calendar program is. That's just, so it doesn't matter if I'm using Outlook or if I'm using Mac Calendar. It's just going to open up with whatever the default program is. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Samir.
Okay. Excellent. This is something to think about. There are other ways that we can integrate other types of programs into FileMaker. We actually have another one where and we'll talk about this in our next user groups, either at Hopkins or down in DC, about integrating other applications in FileMaker. So doing things like exporting files, zipping them up into an archived file, and taking that archived file and emailing it. Okay. So it's just something to think about. We're not limited to just contact management. Right? We can't just do mailing labels. We can do a lot more than that. And it takes a little bit of ingenuity, but you'll find that, especially with FileMaker, it's really easy. And it's believe it or not, it integrates with other systems really, really easily. Like I said, it just takes a little bit of ingenuity. So I think that we're at our time limit here. Maria, do we have any other questions?
No, we definitely thank you very much for joining us. We will send everyone an email with the link to the YouTube channel so you can review this presentation as well as the FileMaker events that we host in the area. We do host FileMaker user groups in the Baltimore area, in DC, as well as in DC, and you can join those in person or via the web. Thank you once again, and everybody have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.